I think it's time, yeah, 7:03.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, welcome to our Wednesday night class. And we're about to sing hymn number 351. 351. Jesus, keep me near the cross, where a precious fountain, free to all healing flows from Calvary's mountain. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, a trembling soul, love and mercy found me. There the bright and morning star sheds its beam around me. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, the Lamb of God, bring its seed before me. Help me walk from day to day, with its shadow o'er me. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, I'll watch and wait, hoping trusting ever, till I reach the golden strand, just beyond the river. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Boy, you guys sound pretty good. Yeah.
And that's a hard one, Tom. That's a hard one. Well, we're good to see you tonight. And if you didn't see it, we do have some books that were given to us to give away tonight. So if you're interested in that, or if you're watching online, you want to stop by the church this week, come by. We've got some spiritual, Christian, religious books. We also have some tool books, some random books, music. So maybe something up there that you might like. All kinds of piano stuff and different genres and stuff. But we have that up there. We also want to remind you that we have our ladies class. If you're watching online or whatever, the Circle of Love and Achievers have joined together, and they will resume this Sunday. And the Mighty Men will be resuming this Sunday as well, Lord's willing. Don said his health is feeling good. Had a good week calling different people, and they said that they're looking forward to being back with us. And so we're excited to hear that good news as well. So let's take some prayer requests tonight. If you're watching online, Jason's watching. So if you have a prayer request you want to give us, we have a praise. Bobby Saul, who comes usually on Wednesday night, not here tonight because he's on his honeymoon. Got married this past Saturday, and I did the wedding for him. So that was a nice privilege for me to do, and I appreciate that. Appreciate Bobby and Amanda, and look forward to her being up here with him and doing ministry with us, and they're excited. She said, I can't wait to get up there. So we're happy about that. Let's remember these folks, and then you can share what you know as well. Julie Walters, she's currently in the Rehab Institute of Ohio, and there's an address there. And they thought she'd had a stroke, but it ended up just being a health, something had got off or something. And so, but it did cause her to fall back to where she was right after she had the stroke. So she needs to get her strength back in her right side to where she can move it a little bit and stuff. And then continue to pray for John Hines as he's recovering from his retina surgery. All right. Who else? Prayer requests tonight, Jason?
Nancy's asking for her granddaughter Megan
Okay.
and for continued health problems.
Right. So remember Megan, Nancy's daughter or granddaughter, and her continued health problems. And like I told them last week, I know if you want the Bible study sheet, we do mail that out now. So if you need that sent to you online, or if you know you're not going to be here and you say, hey, I wish I could get that because I'll watch it later on. If you call the office, give us your email, we'll add you to that so you can get it. Michael, you had a prayer request.
Yes. I'm working on trying to get employed at WTUE,
Okay.
radio station 104.7 in iHeart Media. I'm cutting a demo in a freeze recording studio in about 2 months after the stimulus check comes in for $1,400.
Okay.
And I want the engineering process to go smoothly. I want the levels to be smooth. And I want to make a dynamic air check or studio audition for them.
Okay.
I got an air check already from the radio stations up north, but it's when I was 22 years old.
Okay.
My broadcasting school said give me something current.
Okay.
So I'm cutting them a demo. It's going to sound just like it's on the air, mixing the music in and everything. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed on this because I really want the job.
Okay.
It's either that or 106.5, the oldie station. I'm going to enjoy that.
Did you used to do some radio in the past?
Oh, yeah. I've worked at 4 radio stations.
Oh, okay.
3 FM and 1 AM.
Okay. All right.
To the country station was my last station.
Okay.
Pullman, Indiana.
All right. So pray for Michael with this job opportunity for him.
Thank
Who?
you.
Who else? Prayer requests tonight?
I'd say remember Leroy.
Yes. Leroy, the last I talked with Leroy, he had not got his results back. He did hurt himself. He don't think he broke his hip though because he
No,
said,
he didn't break. I talked to him yesterday,
okay,
and he's nothing broken. It's
okay,
just pain. That's
okay,
all.
okay, all right. So remember Leroy and his healing as well. All right.
I have a phrase.
Yes, sir.
I got blessed with a job and I start tonight.
Okay, all right. So amen. Kirk got him a job. I know you've been looking for a while, so very good. Okay. Anybody else? Praises, prayer requests. All right. Well, let's go to the Lord in prayer and ask his blessing. Brother Rick, this song, will you open us up in prayer, please?
Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the blessings you've given us this evening, Father, by allowing us to come together and hear your word for a plate. Now, Father, all these requests have been lifted up to you. We ask that you hear them, Father, and deal them according to your will. Father, we just lift up Brother Timothy as he brings the word. Father, just bless him and continue to watch over him. Just thank you for all that you've done. For in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right. So tonight, anybody know what book we're in? Song of Solomon. I want to tell you this. Of all the books we have done, I think this was the hardest one to do. I was reading, I read it's not a very big book. So I read the whole book, and then I read a bunch of different commentaries, and I got done, and I still said, Lord, help me. In fact, I'm going to ask, the first question I'm going to ask you now after I go to my chart is, what do you know about this book? So, but I will give you this little overview tonight, and then we're going to read some things and hopefully kind of get a little idea about it. The book of Song of Solomon, or if you have a newer translation, it may say Song of Songs, begins with the courtship. And that's chapter 1, 2 through chapter 3, 5. Then we have the wedding from chapter 3, 6 to chapter 5, 1. And then we have the maturing maturing marriage from chapter 5, 2 to chapter 8, verse 14. There's an emphasis The first emphasis is the bride muses about her beloved. Then the groom speaks tenderly to his bride. And then the wife longs for and describes her loving husband. Then her husband speaks of his wife and then the terms. And then both partners declare a permanent seal of their love. There's a chief speaker, the bride, the darling, the groom, the beloved, the wife, the darling, the husband, the beloved, and then a duet. The theme is the joy and intimacy of love within the committed marriage relationship. The key verse is found in chapter 8:7, and Christ in the book of Song of Solomon foreshadows the bridegroom relationship of Christ with his church. So that's kind of the overview that we have tonight. So here's the question I'm going to ask you. What do you know about this book? What do you know about this book, Song of Solomon? I'm seeing grins on people's faces.
It's generally a book I jump over.
It's generally a book you jump over, all right? Yeah, that's, it's not one of those books that, we're going to do a year-long series on, right? The Song of Solomon. What else?
Can we say that Solomon wrote it?
Solomon wrote it? We'll find out in just a second, okay? Don't jump ahead. Don't jump ahead. Anything else that you think of when you think of Song of Solomon?
I think it could be or it is a good book for newlyweds maybe, and because they're discussing the bride and the groom and marriage and
I was waiting for somebody to say it's kind of risque, That's one of those books is, Well, I mean, a lot of people, I would say that's one reason. It's hard. It is a hard book to read. It's got a lot of metaphors in it. I don't know when's the last time you've read it or whatever, but it's got a lot of metaphors in it. It's got a lot of tenderness in it if you really read it properly. And the thing that stands out to me, and I don't want to get ahead of myself, but with Solomon being the person, it's kind of funny because, I mean, what's Solomon known for? Is what?
Ecclesiastes.
Okay. Oh, in his life, what is he known for? Wisdom. What else?
Lots of women.
Wives. He's known for wisdom and he's known for women. And, when you
have both.
when you think about this book, this is a one-on-one intimate relationship, isn't it? It's not talking about him and a harem. It's talking about him and one wife. And so it kind of makes you like, what? But, it's just when it stood out to me. I don't know. Maybe you never thought about it. But when you got that many women, it's funny that here's this one book geared towards one particular relationship. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe it took him that long to find out real character.
Okay.
A lot of practice.
A lot of practice. Well, we'll see. We'll find out at the end what you think about it. All right. So let's start off with the title here. Several titles have been suggested for the book, and all are taken from the first verse, whether you call it the Song of Solomon, the Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon, or Canticles. The Canticles, Canticles. The first
Again?
Canticles, Canticles. Now, I really have never heard it called that. Has anybody else heard it called that? All right. Well, that must be a real deep theologian that calls it that. So we didn't get there. So phone a friend, Rick. Who do you got that you can call to find out if they know that? No. Okay.
Dad's ever heard that?
The first title is the Hebrew way of expressing the superlative Song of Songs, okay? Kind of like King of Kings, Lord of Lords, the most excellent song. The second title denotes authorship, the Song of Solomon. So that may answer your question in just a second, Tom. And the third title simply means songs, and it's being taken from the Latin translation. So if you knew Latin, then that would have meant something to you, Canticles. So those that's taking Latin, they got that. The authorship. All right. Who do you think wrote it? Ruth?
No.
No, okay, good. It's not Ruth. It's not Ruth. All right. The first verse of the book may be taken to mean the song written by Solomon or the song about Solomon. However, the Old Testament states that Solomon composed 1,005 songs. We see that in 1 Kings 4:32, and I believe when we was in 1 Kings, we actually talked about that for a second, didn't we? So one might expect him to be the author. Also, internal evidence points to Solomonic authorship. The geographical locations mentioned in the book implied a unified monarchy. So that's going to be before Solomon, during his reign. And some details fit well with Solomon's reign. They compare the reference to the horses and Pharaoh's chariots at chapter 1, verse 9, with 1 Kings 10, 28 and 29. And finally, the reason why people believe in Solomon is there is simply no good reason to reject the traditional view that assigns the book to Solomon. So, since we can't give a reason why it's not him, all the indications seem that it is him. That's kind of where it is. Now, this is where, Sylvia, you were trying to answer that question. What's so important about this one relationship that Solomon has, of all the harem that he had? And you said, well, maybe it took him that long to figure it out. But here's what I'll tell you. This book was probably written by Solomon early in his reign, near the middle of the 10th century. So he's going to have a lot more wives and concubines after this. So we'll have to think a little bit more about that. Why, and that's going to be that's going to be an opinion question to figure out what you think. Why did he write this and then continue on with so many marriages and things like that? The speakers, who's talking in this book? We got these 8 chapters, and it's clear that the speakers are a bride. All right? That's the first person that talks. And she's called, and I got an accidental space there. It's not Ed. She's not called Ed. She's called the Shulamite in chapter 6, verse 13. Does somebody already have Song of Solomon open?
Yeah.
Okay, will you read verse 6, 13,
Which
or
chapter?
chapter 6? Chapter 6, verse 13.
Please hold. Chapter 6,
Mm-hmm.
verse 3. Please wait it. Chapter 6, verse 13. Just 13?
Yes, sir.
Here we go. Return, return, O Shulamite, return, return, that we may look upon thee. What will ye see in the Shulamite? As it were, the company of 2 armies.
All right. So we find right here, that's what she's called in chapter 6, the Shulamite. The king. This is who most people consider Solomon. And then the chorus of palace ladies. And they are called the daughters of Jerusalem. All right? The daughters of Jerusalem. At this time, when all this is going on, Solomon's harem, it was only a little harem right now, Sylvia. A little harem. This little harem, he only had 60 wives and 80 concubines. Chapter 6, verse 8 will tell us that. He says, therefore, are 80 queens and 80 concubines and virgins without number. So that, a lot of women there had a harem of that 60 and 80. But does anybody know how much it would get to size-wise?
Isn't it 900?
700 wives, 300 concubines. 1,000. 1,000.
Wow.
We got to talk about this before. Why did Solomon have so many wives? Does anybody remember some of the historical part of this?
He was insane.
Make peace with his neighboring tribes and stuff.
Make peace with, a lot of it was politically motivated. I'm sure there was also some women that he thought looked good. I'm sure he didn't marry just everybody just for politics. If that was the case with 1,000 of them, he would probably have every mayor in the place's kid. So a lot of it political, but I'm sure some of it had to do with they looked good to him or whatever. So When he's writing this story right here about love and about marriage, he's got a small 60 and 80. It gets up to 700 and 300. So long ways to go to that. And
Sorry.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm making sure it's only adults in here.
All right, we're online too. I'll have to mark this as age appropriate if you ask the wrong question. And I'll have to leave if you ask the wrong.
How in the world did this man have contact of any kind with 1,000 females? Was it a different concept of political stuff than what we think of today?
Well, I think you're going to have some that's going to be political for sure, and I'm sure I mean, I wasn't there, so I can't tell you for sure what's going on. I think obviously, if you read the book of Song of Solomon, there's definitely love, lust, whatever you want to say, and Solomon, so he's having a relationship with people. It's not like he's just marrying them, sticking in a box somewhere and living as a hermit. I mean, but like you said, how are you going to have a relationship, a meaningful relationship? And that's what stands out in this book. This lady, this Shulamite woman, and Solomon had a meaningful relationship. Did he have this with, you think, all these other women? I don't think so. I don't think he could have. And I think that's one of the things I want to hit tonight as we're talking about this is that this is a different relationship than I think most of these other women. There's no way that they all have this same kind of relationship, this same kind of feeling, and everything else.
Okay, I have one more question and then we'll be quiet. How long did Solomon live?
How long did Solomon live?
Does it say anywhere?
I know it said something. I'm going to let our resident Google expert, Jason, is going to look that up. And I should have probably had that knowledge, but I know we probably talked about it when we did back a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, when we was back in his life, but I'm going to let him do this on Google.
It says, he reigned 60 years.
You said he reigned 60 years?
But says that he was born in 990 BC
Okay.
and died in 931. So whatever that math is.
960, how many? 59? 59. So,
If you
Yeah.
read for 60 years, how's that possible?
Yeah, wait a
That's
minute.
not possible.
wait a second.
Wait a minute.
That doesn't make sense.
His wife, the giving of wives and stuff like that was both, I mean, some of it was his choice and others was surrounding kings and tribesmen and stuff. They gave their daughters to him just so they'd have peace with them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, probably not all of this was his choice. I mean, it was his choice to accept it, but
Yeah.
it was just a sign of the times.
And let's look at it. Did he have relationships and meaningful relationship with some of these women? Yes, because they turned his hearts to idolatry. Let's look at this. Let's look at Esther. Esther was a queen to a foreign king, but she won his heart. He had more than one wife too, I think. He had a harem, not like Solomon, but she won his heart, and that's why he put his scepter out to her and invited her to come in. And so even with this, there's some people it's going to look better to you. There's some people you're going to love more. It's like our friends. How many people have more than one friend? All right, most of us have more than one friend, but there's some friends we spend more time with than other friends, right?
Yeah.
So, do you have an answer yet, Mr. Jason?
It
Says he
says
was
59.
59 years old when he died.
That
Okay,
doesn't seem very long in comparison to a lot of people back then.
yeah. I guess maybe all that,
More now.
that wore him out, man. It took him out of it. So, all right.
Too much.
Everybody's watching at home saying, boy, I wish I was there in person for this conversation. I told you, this is hard. This is hard. Who was the bride? Well, here's what I saw in one commentary. Now, this is a commentary, and I only saw it in one commentary, but I'm going to throw it out to you. One opinion was that it was Abishag, the Shunem, the fairest maiden in the land, who took care of David in his last days. And so that was one that threw out. And I guess the reason why they may have considered her is because they called her the fairest maiden, and she was from Shunem, the same place as this lady. And we would think that Solomon, not only with the attraction, but also the fact that she cared for David in his last days, might have been a reason why. So that was something that I found in one commentary that I did share. That's not in the Bible. You're not going to find her name listed in that context, but just a little bit of history and just an opinion. And it's kind of neat if that's really the truth. On the surface, it seems to be a story about a bride and groom and their love for one another. All right. However, both the Jews and Christians have seen deeper meanings in this poem and song. The Jews read this story at Passover, and they say this is where is an example of God who espoused Israel to himself as his bride and shows his great love for her. So the Jewish people say there's more to this than what is on the surface. This is a representation of God at the Passover, loving Israel, saving her. Now, Christians have quite commonly regarded it as a prenuptial song of Christ. And the church in the New Testament, where the church is called the bride of Christ. So you have two different distinct groups here, the Jews and the Christians have both said, we read Song of Solomon and we see more than just a love story. We see more than just this marriage thing. So possibly, we don't know for sure. Once again, opinions, some strong opinions. People that's smarter than me are looking for something. I guess part of the reason why people look for this is God's really not mentioned in this book, is he? So when we read it, you say, why in the world would it be in Scripture? What is the meaning of it? So tonight we're going to look at the subjects, and only looking at a verse in each chapter, but kind of see the subjects. Then we'll talk a little bit about that. And so the subjects of the chapters. Chapter 1, verse 1 and 7 is what we're going to look for. Who will read that for us in a second?
Chapter 1.
Song of Solomon. Okay, Sarah, 1:7. Let me read this and then you read the verse. The chapter 1 deal, if you read chapter 1 of Song of Solomon, it is the bride's love for the king and her words of devotion. Listen to one of her words here. Verse 7.
Tell me, O thou whom my soul loveth, where thou feedest, where thou makest thy flock to rest at noon. For why should I be as one that turneth aside by the flocks of thy companions?
Okay, so there's a lot of metaphors in here, but what she's asking is she wants to know where he's at. She wants to be there. She wants to let him know she cares about him. Verse 8, if thou know not, O thou fairest among women, go thy way forth to the footsteps of the flock and feed thy kids beside the shepherd's tents. She just, I want to be with him. I love him. We got Solomon. And let's think about this as being Solomon. There's a lot of competition, right? We've already talked about it. 60 and 80. A lot of competition. Where's he at? Getting back to what you said, how do you have a relationship? You got to work really hard at it. If you have to work really hard at a one-on-one relationship, just imagine if you want the attention of somebody that's got to go with 140 other or 139 other women. But her desire is she loved the king, and these are her words of devotion. Chapter 2, she's got past that, right? Now she's not just dating the king. Now she's not trying to court him. She's not just promised to him. Now she's looking at that bride. You know, she's becoming that bride, the bride's delight and the king's love. Chapter 2, verse 4. Who will read that? Okay, Tom?
He brought me to the banqueting house, and his banner over me was love.
All right. Does that sound familiar to anybody in here? Maybe that's ever done children's church.
Yeah.
The song.
Yeah. He takes me to his banqueting table. His banner over me is love. I never knew. You know what? All these years of singing that song, we'd say, Jesus, the peace of the power of the cross. You guys remember that? And you did your fingers, all that. Did you do the fingers too? Peace of power. Did you do the fingers? You didn't do the fingers? Did you do the fingers? Oh, we used to do these fingers. I don't even know how to do it, but we did it. And we did he sets me at his banqueting table and eat food. Did you do that one? You did that one? So this is from that. She says, okay, I delight in the king's love. And how does she delight in the king's love? In chapter 2, verse 4, it talks about, he brought me to his banqueting table. He brought me to the place where we could feast. In the Bible times, isn't that a great place to be? A place where you can eat, a place where you can have relaxation and enjoyment. Not everybody was invited to the table. I'm sure that there was times that when there was 140 women, they weren't all at the same table with the king, were they? And so this was special to her. She said, he brought me to his banqueting table. He took me to the place where he's at and his banner over me. That showed his love for me, right? Kind of takes a whole new aspect of what he was and who he is, that his banner over him was love. Chapter 3, we split into 2 sections here. Chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, and then chapter 3, 6 to 11. And this one is a little different. Chapter 3, verse 1. Who will read it?
Chapter 3, verse 1.
Yes.
I got it.
Okay.
By night on my bed, I sought him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, and I found him not.
Okay. So what's going on in this part? It says the bride dreams of the king's disappearance. And then if we keep reading, we find that she finds him. Look, verse 2, I will rise down. I go about the city in the streets and in the broad ways. I will seek him, whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. The watchmen that go about the city found me, to whom I said, saw ye him, whom my soul loveth? It was but a little that I passed from them, but I found him, whom my soul loveth. I held him, and I would not let him go until I brought him into my mother's house and in the chamber of her that conceived me. What's going on? She is upset. She's had this terrible thing. Where's he at? I can't find him. And then she finally finds him. I found him. I brought him back to me. Then we get to the second part of chapter 3, and it's the bridal procession that's going on. Who's got chapter 3, verse 11? Rick?
Go forth, O ye daughters of Zion, and behold, King Solomon with the crown wherewith his mother crowned him in the day of his spousal, and in the day of the gladness of his heart.
All right. So we start off the chapter. She's having this terrible dream. She's like, where's he at? And she can't find him. And then she wakes up and she realizes what's happened. We are going to get married. Every young couple, probably before they get married, get cold feet a little bit, right?
Yeah.
They get scared. Maybe they have that terrible dream. What's the worst dream you could have the night before your wedding? That they don't show up. Not only it's not going to happen, but that you're at the altar and they don't show up. If you're the groom, you're standing there at the altar, and here comes the bride or whatever they're playing comes on, and as you're standing there looking, no one ever comes. Or if you're the bride, the groom's doesn't show up to the church, you know.
Or someone speaks up, they should be married.
Oh yeah, I don't ever add that in my services. No, to me that's just asking for something to happen, right? That's a scary thing. And this girl, that's what her dream is. And so when she wakes up and she sees it all happening, there's a relief there about that because everything's going like it's supposed to go. He's going to be mine. 140 concubines and wives. And here she is, and she's worried, and now she's snagged him. She hooked him, right? She's got him. How about chapter 4? The king adores his bride, verses 1 and 2. Lynn?
Behold, you are fair, my love. Behold, you are fair. You have dove's eyes behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats going down from Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn sheep, which have come up from the washing, every one of which bears twins, and none is barren among them.
Wow. Speak to me with love in your eyes.
Your hair's like goats.
Can you imagine today, Tom, I could probably see you trying this. Use this to court Sylvia. You know, here you guys, you said, I read the Bible last night. I'm going to try to court her. And you come up and said, your teeth are like a flock of sheep. Tell me about this. I mean, yes, ma'am.
Not understanding the metaphor and not being a pet person of any kind.
A what person?
Pet,
Pet person, okay.
animal, you know.
Yeah.
We would have a whole lot of mess going on. You go home and maybe I'm not gonna do this.
Yeah. That may be enough to end the engagement real fast,
Mhm.
right? So if you're watching tonight, young men, and you're thinking, I am going to use some of Solomon. I mean, what he said must have worked. He had all those wives. He was a smooth operator. Maybe not necessarily the best ideal to say your eyes are as black as doves and your hair looks like a flock of goats, and your teeth look like a bunch of sheep. So tell me, what do you think this means? These images, what do you think? I got the teeth one.
I don't get none of them.
You don't get another? I got the teeth one, and that's why I included it, because I thought it was, and you guys try to figure out the other one, but it says, thy teeth are like a flock of sheep that are short. So those are real clean, neat, white teeth.
And you got all of them.
And she's got, that was the other part. It says, and they all have pairs. They all have pairs and none is bare. That's what I said. I said, what he's saying is you got nice white teeth and you have them all. You don't have a bunch of missing teeth, holes in your mouth. That's really what he's saying here. That is what Solomon saying. You know, he's saying real, I mean, that does sound a little more flattering than, I'm glad your teeth are there and they're pretty white. You know, that's a pretty good. What about the first verse?
You can almost get the dove eyes, but
Okay.
other than that, the hair like a flock of goats.
Hair like a flock of goats.
And I don't know,
Our resident
the
goat
eyes,
farmer here.
You know,
I don't think goats are fluffy, so.
What is a flock of goats?
Goats are
What would
not
their
really a
hair
good
appear to
animal.
look like?
Green.
Stringy?
No,
just
I don't
have
think
that
so.
all over.
Well,
You know?
maybe she wasn't bald.
Yeah, that's it.
Goat's hair is really coarse
Of
and
course,
not real nice.
yeah. Yes, Dwight.
In the Bible, the Messenger, it says, you're so beautiful, my darling, so beautiful, and your dove eyes are veiled by your hair as it flows and shimmers like a flock of goats in the distance, streaming down a hillside in the sunshine.
Okay, so the goats running and the sun glistening on
Listen off their hair, yeah.
off their hair. So it was more, it was not necessarily that it looked as much like the goats. It was the glistening of the sun on her hair. You know, here he was. And they had a lot of goats over in Israel. So that might have been a beautiful metaphor. But as you can see here, as crazy as this sounds, Solomon is also showing this is somebody that's special to him, right?
Mhm.
And once again, we get back to all those other women, but yet Solomon's taking the time to write this book, and him and this Shulamite woman are having a deep conversation of love for one another, and a lot of it is a physical attraction, right? This is a physical attraction. I like the fact that you have all your teeth, you know. I like the fact that your hair glistens like the goats and that you have these dove eyes and, you know,
Not bald.
and you're not bald. Yeah, I love that. I love that about you. You're not bald and that you have all your teeth. That's a great, you know, it's almost like, could she say the same thing about him? You know, I don't know. But anyway, that is the king adoring his bride. Chapter 5, another dream. And this time it's the king's disappearance after their nuptials. Who has chapter 5, verse 6 that they will read for us? Jean?
I opened for my beloved, but my beloved had turned away and was gone. My heart leaped up when he spoke. I sought him, but I could not find him. I called him, but he gave me no answer.
Again, you take off.
Takes off. Seems to be a pattern here, doesn't it?
I think that's where he's getting all his concubines.
Yeah, taking off and having to be with other.
Otherwise,
How would that make her feel? Hurt,
Insecure.
insecure,
Abandoned.
abandoned, alone,
angry.
angry. Sometimes people can feel that way even without any concubines, right? New wedding, get used to it. We're supposed to do everything together. All of a sudden, relationship, you have your friends, I have my friends. All of a sudden, you're not there. You work late. There's maybe moves to a new place. So we have chapter 6. Maybe a little encouragement to her. Chapter 6, verse 8 and 9. We have someone will read that. Chapter 6, 8 and 9.
There are 80 queens and 80 concubines and virgins without number. My dove, my undefiled, is but one. She is the only one and her mother. She is the only one of her mother. She is the choice one of her that bare her. The daughters saw her and blessed her, yea, the queens and the concubines, and they praised her.
All right. So we have a lady, and obviously she's a choice of Solomon's. He says some crazy things that are really romantic back in those days to her. And then she has this terrible dream that he's gone once again. And so chapter 6, the bride here is recognized as the loveliest of all the 140 beauties in the palace. He makes a note of this, right? That all these concubines, all these queens, and all these even young women, virgins without number. And he says, but she's one. And she's the only one of her mother. She is the choice one, right? The daughters saw her and blessed her. This is these women, right? Yea, the queens and the concubines. All of them. They praised her. What does that do for her esteem? If you see a competition, think about a beauty contest, right? You got all these women in a beauty contest. They got their sashes. I'm Miss So-and-so, I'm Miss So-and-so, I'm Miss So-and-so. And they look around and they got their talents and they got their looks and they got their smarts and they got all this stuff and they compare themselves, right? You compare yourself. You're watching these women, and not only are they compare themselves, but you have all these people watching them on television, and you have the judges, and they're looking and they say, which is the best, which is the best. And here's this woman, and she says, I love Solomon. He seems to love me, but he has all these others. How do I compare with all these others? And he says, you're the one. The judge in that contest crowns her Miss Universe or Miss World or Miss America or whatever. And what they say is you're better than the rest. And then Solomon in this book is kind of like that sash saying, you're the one. You're the best. You're the favorite. Kind of gives some confidence. I don't know what happens when you marry another 500 and some women and, you know. But for this moment, this is what I think part of it is he's trying to build up her self-esteem, trying to raise her confidence up. Chapter 7, the king and the bride are mutual devotion. If you read that, they just kind of spread back and forth their praises, praises on her beauty, the faithfulness of him. And then we get to chapter 8. And we find that their love is unquenchable and their union indissoluble. Chapter 8, verse 6 and 7, it says, set me as a seal upon thine heart, as a seal upon thine arm, for love is strong as death. Jealousy is cruel as the grave. The coals thereof are coals of fire, which have a most vehement flame. Many waters cannot quench love. Neither can the floods drown it. If a man would give all the substance of his house for love, it would utterly be condemned. Pretty easy to see that for them, their love wasn't going to be stopped by any physical thing, would it? That's kind of the book of Song of Solomon. I got a couple questions to end us with tonight. We talked about the theme, and it's actually kind of found in two places in this book. Chapter 2, verse 16, and then chapter 6, verse 3. Will somebody read 2, verse 16? Okay, Sarah. And then will somebody else read 6, 3? Okay, Kirk. All right, Sarah.
My beloved is mine, and I am his. He feedeth among the lilies.
Okay. And Kirk, chapter 6, verse 3.
6 verse 3.
Uh-huh.
I am my beloved's, beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He raises among the lilies.
All right. So compare these two verses. Are they the same? Are they different?
Pretty much the same.
Same to me.
Pretty much the same, yeah. So what do you think the theme here is? This is the theme verse of this passage. What is Solomon trying to get across? And maybe if we're going to try to take this deeper and we're going to be like the Jews and say, is this God and Israel and the Passover, Christians and the bride of Christ? What is this saying? I am my beloved and my beloved is mine.
They're one.
They're one, okay? Yes, ma'am.
If you leave out all the flamboyant stuff, those key passages to me reflects what was created in Eden. They were one. There was couldn't separate them. It was as God had intended a married love to be.
There's nothing to separate that. If I'm going to take this and say, okay, how do I apply this to maybe the bride of Christ? Can we be separated from Christ's love? Nothing can separate me from the love of Christ, right? Kirk, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, in verse 3, what I just read, it basically sounds like they both complete each other.
Mhm.
When it says among the lilies, out of all those women he had, she was chosen. So basically, no, she puts that hole in his heart. She filled it, I'm sorry.
There's a lot of choices out there. And I think that's the important thing, and once again, getting back to the Passover and to the church, God chose Israel. In the Old Testament, he chose Israel. That was his people. Now, he went to Abraham and he gave Abraham a command. And he said, leave your land and follow me. And the reason that Abraham's people became God's people was because Abraham left. If Abraham ignores God, then he can't be God's people, right? Same way with you and I today. Jesus tells us, follow me, right? Follow me. If I choose to follow him, I become his disciple. I become a believer. If I say no to him, I don't get that. Once I follow him, here's the great thing about the Lord. He doesn't decide one day he don't want me no more. He keeps me. That's why I love that verse in the scripture. It talks about that we are sealed by the Holy Spirit until the day of redemption. And when he redeems me, I'm definitely not getting thrown away because that's when he's going to take me to be with him, right? And so when we read this passage of scripture, I am my beloved is his, we have to understand as much as I am God's, he is mine, right? That's what Solomon is. Shulamite woman, I have a lot of other things and people that maybe I can have. But when it all boils at the end of the day, I love you. I love you. You're the one that has the best teeth and the glistening hair, and you're not bald, right? She has two dreams where he's gone. Any thoughts on why she would have those kind of thoughts?
Jealousy.
Okay. Jealous because there's other women. Insecurity. Do you think sometimes we have those feelings too? Case in point, the Lord takes care of a lot of people. Just sometimes we have the feeling that he has enough time to listen to my needs and my request. Or my problem's too small for him, as he got more important things and more important people. Who's important to God?
Everybody.
Everyone.
We're all
important to him. We look at people and say, well, that person over there is more important. I don't see that in the Bible. I see that God loved people. Remember the fancy centurion that came to get Jesus? Do you remember who stopped Jesus from getting to him? A woman that had an issue of blood, a woman that was unclean, a woman that no one else had time for. How many times on Jesus' journey did people that were in terrible physical shape, that were outcasts, cry out, have mercy, and Jesus had mercy? How many times did Jesus meet people that nobody else wanted to meet and hold up on people that people thought was more important? Why? Because he said, I've come to seek and to save that which was lost. Sometimes we can maybe be like this lady and think there's not enough time for us, but the reminder that we need to have is that there's always time for us because Christ loves each and every one of us. If we look at this book tonight and we believe this is Solomon with all his wives and concubines, what does he do here to reassure this woman of his love? And in reading this book, why do you think she was so special to him? Chapter 4 is kind of where I think we can find the answer to it a little bit, but
She was his beloved. She was number one.
she was number one, his first pick, or at least his last pick or most important pick.
She was the one that rocked his boat.
Chapter 4:10, how fair is thy love, my sister, my spouse, how much better is thy love than wine, and the smell of thine ointments and all spices. There was a lot of physical stuff, but there was a deep looking at her, and there was something that connected them. There was something that, like I think maybe Kurt said, completed him. And just looking at this, there was some physical stuff, but there was some other stuff about that too, because I'm sure there were some other beautiful women, but he really cared for this woman. Final question I'm going to ask you tonight: what do you think this book teaches couples? You could take this and say, okay, here it is. It's in the Bible. We got to learn something from it. What does it teach couples?
Love hangs in there.
Love hangs in there, okay? All right.
There is an intimacy that goes beyond what the world defines, that is far more superior than what we think in our natural self.
Okay. What else? Anybody?
He found his 1 in 1,000. Maybe we did too.
Even with all the other women of his life, this lady stands out. And sometimes, even today, maybe a reminder to us is there's going to be challenges in marriage. There's going to be challenges in relationships. There's going to be some days you're going to see these people or that people, or, you might, go to work, and if you're a wife, your husband works, he's got a gorgeous secretary, or maybe your wife works with a bunch of smart muscle men, and you can't look at this thing and say, wow, I'm going to be concerned about this. At some point, she had to quit having bad dreams he was going to run off, and had to believe that he loved her, right? And I think that's the important thing about any relationship. When you have that relationship, it doesn't matter who comes around you or who comes in your path, because it's more than just a physical thing here. It's a connection that is not easily broken. And that is the difference than what the world in Hollywood, training for a new model, right? Both ways, Elizabeth Taylor. Yes.
Does it ever explain about the whereabouts of these other women besides that one girl? It's, from what I get from this, looks like he's treating them like their property or trading cards.
Oh,
They
They
were.
were.
They were.
if you got 1,000 wives, concubines, a concubine wasn't even a wife, it was basically a mistress. Yeah, that's pretty much the way.
Back in the day, women were actually property. They weren't, they didn't have the same statute that they do nowadays.
Does it say about that?
No, this has nothing to do with being right with the Bible. God was never polygamy. That's why he created Adam and Eve. He didn't create Adam, Eve, Sarah, Beth, Lynn, Jane, all that.
Sorry.
But unfortunately, Solomon was wise, but he was also foolish. And the other sad thing about this is he had the one, and he continued to marry and have other concubines. And I wonder what eventually happened to this relationship, because after a while,
Listen to Hollywood, she's the Queen of Sheba. Got Solomon's mind, and he gave all the control to her and stuff.
I mean, you can't keep saying to me, I love you, you're the most important thing to me, and then say I do 600 more times, right? Yes, ma'am.
But that was very common back in the biblical times, more so than today, where the kings and the rich people, whatever, they did have.
They did have multiple wives.
Yes.
I think Solomon was above and beyond, though.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So, any other thoughts or comments?
He was the richest one back in there.
Yeah.
And he was, sort of like king of the world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They didn't want him to come in and destroy their little kingdom, so they'll get their daughter or something.
And what came with the wives, probably? Dowry, right?
Right.
That's probably helped him become the
Right.
richest,
Queen's got their own castle, right? There's a
everything.
lot of castles in one little country.
That's why she didn't know where he was at the time. The house was too big.
Yeah.
And that may be going back to her dreams, what she was experiencing. Where is he? So, all right. Well, a different Bible study tonight. I'm glad we only have Song of the Solomon one book and not Song of Solomon part 2, But God has it in there for us. Hopefully you took something away from it. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much that we can open your word tonight. And even a book like this, we can find some truths for us to look at. Lord, help us sometimes to learn from Solomon and not do what he did. And help us to see that there is genuine, real love, and that jealousy and other things like that shouldn't separate us from that. Take us to our homes. Bless the prayer requests as mentioned tonight. Bring us again to your house this coming Lord's Day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Really looking forward to Isaiah after this.
Yeah.